Okay, so welcome to our NBN Academy workshop this evening. We appreciate your interest in what we're doing. Uh, this is one of our favorite things to do is give out money. We just started taking pictures like the other people do, uh, like some of the other departments. It's just a really fun time. Anicia, do you have, the last count I had was we've given out at least 60,000. That was 2018. Do we have an idea of how much money we've given out total?
That is a good question, Jim. I would have to go back to look. I can't. Jim likes to keep detailed records, so he probably has a better sense of it than I. But we have given out quite a few grants since I took over the program. But I don't have the total amount in front of me right now, Jim.
Do you think we're approaching 100,000?
I could see that.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I think that's a good thing. We enjoy doing it. Let me just give you a few of the things that I know we've done. Uh, we've had some civic leagues. We've had at least two civic leagues that wanted to do some improvements to their dog parks. And so they were neighbors coming together to do that. We had one neighborhood, Fairmont Park, did a wetlands pocket park. They partnered also with Lowe's. I think they got a grant from Lowe's. We've done beautification projects. These are all, we've helped with a number of events to buy equipment. I know that we um, bought a popcorn maker, and was it like a snow cone machine, or did they also do cotton candy at Ingleside and Anicia? Okay, so we've helped buy some equipment for different events that have helped people get together. We've certainly helped with community gardens. I think one of the most recent that we helped with was it was called Blueberry Lab. It's a blueberry garden project. Um, we have helped with cleanup events. I think the one Civic League got custom cleanup vest. We've helped with membership campaigns. We've helped with some mailings, door hangers. There was a project, I think, a few years ago called Paint the Park. I don't remember what that was, but I know I have it in my records. I do, feel bad that I have not done such a great job of getting pictures of these projects. It would be nice to have some pictures to show you of some of our projects. But we've done a lot of really wonderful things. And so we are happy to incentivize people to get together and do different projects in their neighborhood and try to fund those projects where we can. I'm going to share with you, for those of you who registered, I shared the handout earlier. And just a few notes about WebEx. Hopefully you can see that. If you look, at least if you're using a computer, I'm not sure what it looks like on a phone, but there should be, on the computer app, there should be 100% at the top of the display screen, and then a plus and a minus on either side so that you can zoom in and zoom out. That will help you. You can also expand it so it's just the shared content. It has like two little arrows opposing each other if you want to do that. And most everybody is pretty good at this point about muting themselves when they're not speaking to mute out background noise. If for some reason you forget, hope you're not offended if I mute you if you have some background noise going on. So I think that covers that. Here's where we're going this evening. Here's the agenda. I want to just review the program description that identifies what block by block is for, go over a few key points that I want to keep re-emphasizing. I want to say something about the balance that we have between incentivizing activity with protecting the public interest. That's something that I've had to change my thinking on. Go over the block by block process and then give you two sample applications. One is a matching application, and then the other is a mini application. I've given time for question and answers, but feel free to jump in anytime if you have a question. Raise your hand, or if I don't see it, go ahead and just jump in and give us your question. If it's a short question, if it's your life story and more of a commentary, we ask that you may hold that to the end. But if you have a good, succinct question, go ahead and jump in at any time. So here's the program description, and this is going to be really important. So if you are writing a grant, you want to make sure that before you even pick up the application, that this is the kind of work that you want to do. So the Block by Block grant program is a resource that provides opportunities for neighborhood residents to engage with their neighbors, develop and enhance relationships with the city, build mutually productive collaborations with local public and private businesses, acquire and utilize new and sustainable skills, all while working toward accomplishing their neighborhood's goals. So if you want to write a winning grant, you want to write a grant that does those things. So I've tried to highlight some of those key words: engage with their neighbors, build relationships, show collaborations, develop skills. Those are the kind of things and the projects that we're looking for when we are evaluating block by block grants. That's why the city gives us money. That's why city council and the city manager give us money. And so those are the kind of things that we want to do. One of the things that we don't do is we don't pay wages for somebody else to come in and do the work. And for reasons I don't know, we don't pay for food. But some of the applications, we try our best not to reject applications. Some of the applications that I know Nisi has rejected and that we've looked at as a team are when somebody wants to come in and pay somebody else to do the work. That really isn't what we're trying to do. We really want to see neighbors working together. So here are a few key points. The grant is for civic leagues and neighborhood associations. In the past, we had given out a small number of grants to small grassroots nonprofits, but the city attorney's office has advised us that this block by block grant is really for civic leagues and neighborhood associations. So that's what we limited the grants to, just those. So we have a lot of active civic leagues, somewhere around 80. Neighborhood associations, we have some tenant associations. It gets a little fuzzy with HOAs and condo associations. We have some homeowners associations that are entire neighborhoods to themselves. St. Andrews and Lafayette Shores are both homeownership association communities, and they're entire neighborhoods. If you are in a homeownership or a homeowners association and it's owned houses, they're not as likely to give you that grant. We would probably refer you to the larger civic league. The same goes for condo associations. Hopefully that makes sense. The big thing, before I moved to Pittsburgh, I ran a nonprofit and I went to grant making workshops, and this was always the biggest thing that they said: follow the instructions. And so that is often the biggest reason. Go ahead, Anicia.
No, I just wanted to weigh in with Jim when you were talking about the that it's designed for civic leagues and how in the past we've worked with nonprofits or business associations. And just wanted to share that sometimes we do have civic leagues that collaborate with business associations and nonprofits, and you're able to do that, but the civic league would have to submit the application, even if it's something that's being done in collaboration with a business association or with a nonprofit. The civic league still has to submit the application.
Oh, that is a great point. Thank you, Anicia. In fact, is it this weekend? It might be this or next weekend. Highland Park is doing a great project. One of our team members went to it last year, where they partner with the businesses to do a trick or treat event where the businesses on North Colley Avenue participate and give out candy, and the Civic League sponsors it. It's a great partnership. Those are the kind of things that we want to see, but it is through the Civic League. Businesses are ineligible themselves to apply for the grant. So great point. The other big key point that we want to emphasize is that if you don't have an SCC registration, you don't get a grant. That's a legal requirement. We'll come back to those again and again. And this helps me understand it. The block by block grant is a contract with the city. So a lot of these legal details really matter. For instance, the applicant organization, the name of the organization on your SCC registration, and the W-9 that you turn in, they all have to match. We'll come back to that in a little while. And then the other thing I really want to emphasize is successful applications begin with good planning and advanced timing. One of the things, oh, go ahead, Tyler.
Hi, I'm sorry. I want to start with saying I am from the Campostella neighborhood. Um I
Welcome.
I am not part of a civic lead or organization. I'm an Eastern Star, and when I saw the link I just kind of wanted to jump in and see, just kind of get an education on this. Um my question, when you all were talking about that the money does not go to nonprofits, but you would support like a nonprofit teaming up with a civic league, correct?
Correct.
So, and maybe you will cover this later, and I'm asking this question premature, but so as far as I know, I read that part of it is grant matching. So when you do the grant matching, could the money come from the nonprofit to be matched if the application is going in the civic league's name?
I believe that I would have to see it specifically in an application, but I believe that should be permissible. In fact, I think most civic leagues would like it if people gave them money. Anicia, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, so a civic league match, and so let's just say, Tyler, that you partnered with the Berkeley Civic League to host a back to school event. And you did a matching grant. Part of the match that the Civic League would have to show would have to either come from their coffers. And a lot of times civic leagues just don't have the funds to match the $2,500 that's being offered. So yes, the match could be from other funds, and that is part of the application that Jim's going to cover with you. So yes, they could. Some of the funds could come from the Civic League, and some of them could come from external organizations. And as Jim said, we do encourage them to collaborate with others that would be willing to financially contribute to the grant. So yes, the Eastern Stars could provide that match for the Civic League. And Jim's going to go into a little bit further about what the match looks like, because it's not always dollar for dollar.
Thanks,
Thank
Anicia. Did that answer your question, Tyler?
Yes, and I think I'll get more as you go on.
Okay, very good. Um, Then the other thing I want to say while we're on this slide is the balancing to interest. So this is, I've, since I became bureau manager in late May, this has had an effect on me. I've had to think differently because normally my role was, man, people present us with really good ideas and I get excited and wow. I think Lauren had a project with one of her neighborhoods that she serves where they would like to put up like a message board in the community. And so, man, I think, wow, this is a great idea. But then they hit some roadblocks because the city has different requirements for putting things on public property, such as an encroachment permit, which limits your ability. It has to be approved. And so that can be a process and it can be sometimes a headache. But I've also realized the other side of this is that so our office is really interested in your good ideas and really interested in incentivizing neighbor activity. The other part of city government is that we have to protect the public interest. We have to protect against fraud, waste, abuse, and things like encroachment permits. They're the same kind of things that prevent anybody from going into the right of way, into a public park or into the sidewalk in front of your house and putting up random signs or putting up posts and digging into the water main. So those are the other things that we have to consider. And that helps me, be a little more realistic and I think be a little more understanding of the frustration that some people feel when they're up against some of the city processes. But I hope that that helps balance it out, that you understand that our city departments are also trying to protect the public. So this is where you may need to increase the zoom on your screen. What I've done, this is, it's somewhat of a messy flow chart to look at on the screen, but I want to just go through the block by block process with you. Hopefully it will help you understand, give you a broad, big picture overview of what is going on. And I need to increase the size myself. Okay. So the first thing is that we suggest that you do is read the grant instructions. That will help guide you through a number of different things. And then say somebody has a great idea. There are a lot of great ideas. We love great ideas. So the next thing that we think you should be doing is talking to your civic league. One of the things that I don't want to make this into a more than it is, but one of the things that we grow concerned about is when one person comes to us with a grant application and it's pretty much just from them. It doesn't involve the neighborhood. They may be the president or they may be a board member for their civic league, but it is pretty much their project and theirs alone. And that's something that concerns us. So we think it's a good idea to make sure that your civic league, your organization is on board with this, your neighborhood is on board with this from the very beginning. So the other thing that we recommend is that you discuss this with your neighborhood development specialist. In the email that I sent earlier to those who are registered, I put the link to the website where you can find your neighborhood development specialist. I know we have Lauren and Kaylin here this evening. If I'm missing anybody, my apologies. But they can help guide you through this process. They can kind of filter your initial ideas. If your idea is to pay a food truck to come do an activity, they're going to be able to say, no, sorry, we can't pay for food. And so that's going to, reduce some frustration down the end. If you turn in a block by block application and it's to buy a bunch of food, it's going to save you the frustration if you just talk to your neighborhood development specialist to begin with. So they say, wow, great idea, go ahead. What you're going to do is you are going to start doing your research and asking some questions with your civic league. Do we need permits? Can we get them in time by the block by block deadline? Will be registered with the SCC online? So one of the things that the city attorneys requires is that to make a contract is that you have an active SCC registration. You do not have to be a full 401c3 or 501c organization, but you do have to be registered in the state of Virginia as a non-stock corporation that's not for profit. If you do not have that and you can't show that, the grant really will not go very far. So that's really important. Is the project feasible? What will it cost the Civic League, especially if making a matching grant? Is it going to cost the Civic League something? If you are applying for your SCC registration for the first time, the last time I checked, the cost is $75. So that's not a bad deal. If you pay $75 up front and you can get a $500 mini grant, or you can get a $2,500 matching grant, that's a pretty good deal, but it's still money that will have to come out of your civic league or your organization. So that's one of the questions that you should be asking ahead of time. And then you should, again, make sure that the civic league, when you have some of those facts, when you know what it's going to cost, about what it's going to cost, we would like to see that the Civic League is on board with this, that they voted for it, and it may just be the board, but we want to see that the neighborhood is on board with this. Again, that it's not just one or two people coming up with this project. And then the last thing, before you even begin to fill out the application, is just to begin that planning process. Proceed with project planning, begin contacting departments, obtaining preliminary approval from those organizations, from departments. If it's on public property, you may need a special event. If you want to do an event on public property, you'll have to go through special events. If you want to put something on public property, such as a message board, you'll have to go through right-of-way. If you are doing some kind of gardening in a public park or beautification project, you will want to contact Parks and Recreation and their design architects. Those are all the kind of things that you can bet that when you turn in your application, we're going to check. We're going to check with our other departments to make sure that we're in compliance with the city's other rules. And then you also want to make sure that you're up to date with your SCC active registration. So if you have all of those things prepared, you are in a much better position to write a winning grant. One of the things that we've seen that I feel bad sometimes when we say no, But one of the things that we see is people see the grant deadline coming up and they come up with a project a week or two before the deadline. And then we see applications that really are not mature and are not really ready for processing because a lot of the advanced planning isn't really there. So when you've done that, if you've done all of that work up front, you're in a really good position. Again, I would discuss it with your neighborhood development specialist so that they can just double check some things just to make sure that you don't take the time, especially a matching application can be very detailed, and it will save you the work if you go ahead and talk to your neighborhood development specialist in advance. So when you've done that, you're ready to fill out the application. Then you will attach some different documentation. You will need to attach a new W-9, and it has to be the latest one. The one on our website, the link on our website should take you straight to the IRS website for the most recent, which for this last round was March of 2024. You also need to provide active SEC registration verification. We'll show you some examples of that. Cost estimates from different vendors if you're buying some things, and then we'll want to see and we'll double check that you have preliminary approval or permits from departments. So then when you have all of that, you're ready to submit the block by block application before the deadline with all of the signatures. So two cautions here. One is that your organization, and I need to make this a little bigger for myself. I'll just get out of that. So two cautions, one of which is your organization name must match on all documents, grant applications, SEC verification, and W-9. We'll come back to that a little later. And then the other big caution that I would share is that if you designate your organization on the application or the W-9 as a 501c organization, you will be required to show up-to-date proof of that. That's from the city attorney's office and from finance. We had an issue, I think it was last round or second to last round, where an organization put in their application or their W-9 that they were a 501c organization. And then when the city attorneys, was it the city attorney's office, Anicia, that asked for verification?
It was the finance department.
Okay. They asked for verification, but they didn't have, it had been done. They'd applied so many years ago. Officers had changed in the Civic League that they couldn't find their paperwork, which required going to the IRS, which, as you know, is not a fast process. And so we don't require that you be a 501c organization. So your options are to leave that off. Or if you do put that on your organization, on your documents, you must be able to provide documentation, up-to-date documentation of that. Is that correct, Anicia?
That is correct.
All right, thank you. So once you submit the application, one of the things that the first step they will come to me now, and that I'm just going to look for easy fixes. Say you forgot a page or you're missing a signature. I'm going to let you know right up front. If it's an easy fix, go ahead and fix that and send it back to us. So the next step is that's going to, or if it's something that I just know is not going to qualify, for instance, if you ask for a $2,500 grant to pay for a food truck, I'm going to say, no, that's not a project we can support. And you'll still have some time to fix it. But those are easy fixes. They're not into the details. So the next step is after the deadline, we meet as a team in neighborhood engagement and we review the applications. Again, we will either move them forward, we'll say, sorry, we can't support it, or we'll ask you to fix them. We don't reject very many applications, so that's a rare thing. We usually try to work with civic leagues to fix them. So at that point, and this is a detail that we can help you with separately, is that we'll ask you to register as a vendor with the city. There's instructions for that included in the instruction packet. That's so that the city can assign you a contract number and a vendor number, and that they can write a contract with you down the road. We then submit the applications to our department head, Kim Pierce, and then she reviews them. Again, we don't reject mini grants. If it's something that is an easy fix, then we'll do an easy fix. Usually by that point, they're in really good shape. When she's happy with them, then we submit them the applications with supporting documentations, memos, transmittal documents, and then they go to the city attorney's office. And again, hopefully at that point, they are in really good shape. And go ahead, Anicia.
No, please finish your sentence, Jim. I just wanted to add a little something to what you're sharing.
Oh, sure. So the city attorney's office now does electronic documents. And if you get an email from the city attorney's office that is asking you to DocuSign a document, the contract, that is a really good sign. That is the sign when we can both breathe a sigh of relief. It means it's made it through the city attorney's office. They've drawn up a contract that is signed by the city attorney's office, by the deputy city manager, by the city manager. That is a moment when we can all celebrate because it's through the worst part of the review process. So, Anicia, did you want to say something?
I did, and just to go to emphasize what Jim was sharing about doing a lot of the technical work up front. It may seem like we don't want it to appear as if we are being nitpicky or being very particular, but the reason why we may ask for edits or may meet with you and give you some suggestions to wording, and we try to be as detailed on the front end, because what we hope to do is to prevent it being pushed back on the back end. So very rare occasions, but it has occurred where we've advanced an application in either the finance department or the city attorney's office will say, hey, there's something missing with this application, or this isn't clearly defined. And so what Jim and the neighborhood development specialists are going to want to do with you is make sure that that application is as thorough and fully defined as possible. So we're not looking for you to write paragraphs of information, but Jim is going to he's going to go through with a fine-tooth comb so that when it does get ready to go to the department head for review, and when it does go to the finance department, because the city attorney's office, they're the ones that are initiating the grant contract, they're going to, if there are some terms that we've worked with, they are very particular. And so we want to reduce the possibility of your contract coming back. So I just want to share that with you, that we're not looking to, we're not looking to find fault with applications, but we are going to go through it and be as thorough as we can in getting you to clarify some of the information that you provided.
Thanks, Anicia. Good stuff. Tyler, your hand is up, and I'm not sure whether that's a new question or if that's from your previous question.
It's old, sorry.
Oh, there we go. No problem. Okay. And let's see.
I want you to balance where you find the word privacy.
Okay. We'll keep moving along. So from there, the heavy lift is over. So what happens after the contract is signed, you will sign DocuSign electronically via email. When that's complete, it gets referred back to our office, and then we send it to the Department of Finance for processing. They issue checks and they send them back to our department. We notify you when we receive the checks to pick them up. If you're having a difficult time picking them up, we'll try to deliver them to you, and we'll ask you to sign for them just as proof that we gave them to you. And then you deposit the check, pay expenses, and execute your project. So a few cautions here. One, keep receipts. Another caution is notify us before changing plans. So you have submitted a grant proposal, and that's what that's what the contract is for. That's what the city has said these taxpayer dollars are going for. So if you need to change, and we've had civic leagues that, things didn't work out or something changed, it's not the end of the world, but we need you to notify us and get permission before changing the use of those taxpayer dollars. We've had occasions, one or two occasions, where people put in their application one thing and did something completely different with the funds that we gave them. And that is not something that is a very good thing. And then the last thing is, if you don't use the money, be prepared to return the money if not used for the intended purposes. I don't know that have we had any occasions where that's happened in ECA?
We've not, Jim,
Okay.
but that is something that we are giving some consideration to with the wording of the application. But we have had a time or two where the application, what was produced, was not at all in alignment with what was submitted on the application, nor the agreement that they signed with the city. So we don't want that to happen.
And if I remember correctly, we had a seniors high rise that was very, 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 almost amusingly so, very, very frugal with their grant money and got what they requested for cheaper than what they requested in the grant. And so we just encouraged them. We worked with them. They didn't do it on their own. But if I remember correctly, we worked with them just to add some things to their purchases so that, we didn't have to fool with giving back $50 or something like that.
And you're right, Jim, and thank you for sharing that, because that does happen sometimes. And we appreciate that civic leagues will look to get the best value for their dollar. And as a result, sometimes the prices change, and something that you thought was going to cost $100 now only costs $75. And so we've had occasions where a civic league will say, well, I had extra money left over. Can I use for something else? And so you just notify Jim. And again, if it's something in alignment with the grant, it may be that you get additional paint, or you get additional supplies, or maybe if you're doing a gardening project, you buy more mulch or more flowers. More than likely, we're going to approve that.
Thanks, Anicia. And then the last thing is, we ask that the project be complete within 6 months so that we can do a closeout report and submit, and we ask for receipts of where the money was spent so that we have evidence that we are spending taxpayer dollars in a meaningful and authentic way. If you need more time, we've been able to grant extensions. Sometimes the grant windows do not align perfectly. It can take, sometimes it's taken up to 3 months to process the grant, depending on how many we're putting through at one time and any limitations on some of those grants. And so it may not always work out that you can complete it in 6 months. We just ask that you ask for an extension and not just assume it. So that is a big picture look at the block by block process. The next thing I want to do is go over, just look briefly at the instruction packet. I'm not going to read the whole instruction packet to you. I just want to highlight a few things. So here's something that is important. We don't want to give the money back every year. We want to spend the money for civic leagues. But if we have a large number of civic leagues, we limit one application per neighborhood or civic league to be funded in one grant cycle, except in rare instances where the availability of funds would make it possible to do more. For instance, a mini grant and a matching grant. We're not going to give you 2 matching grants in a grant cycle, but as you'll see later when we go through the sample, Bayview just submitted and won both a matching grant and a mini grant for 2 separate projects. If for some reason we would not have the funds to do that, we would limit it to one grant or the other. Usually people choose the matching grant, but that is something that's an option that we leave open. As I mentioned before, one of the things that we would like more of is have pictures to showcase your projects. We have an annual neighborhood expo every year. We would love for you to come. It's usually the 3rd Saturday in September, depending on some other events that are happening. But that's something we would love for your Civic League to come and show off. And we really would like more pictures. Some other things that from the instructions, and If you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me. Again, I said we expect up to 3 months. Sometimes we ask you to plan that it could take up to 3 months for the project. So don't plan on a project that is 3 weeks away from the deadline. So this also is important. I've mentioned this before. Any Norfolk Civic League or neighborhood association that has state legal entity status. But here's something else that we want to know, that your civic league or neighborhood organization is open to everybody in the neighborhood. We have a few lingering civic leagues that do not include, that are only for homeowners. We like to see that especially a civic league is open to anybody in the neighborhood, whether they're a homeowner or a renter in an apartment. And then this is something else. We received a grant application one time from someone in one neighborhood where they lived for another neighborhood. And that really is not appropriate either. We want to see that the project is in the neighborhood for the person applying and that it is for their residents. Again, we ask, I'm not going to go through all the permits that might possibly be required, but if the project is on private property, we would like to see evidence that the owner of that property has given you permission to do that. That way we don't like to see any surprises down the road. There's some examples in the instructions of some things we'd like to fund: skill building workshops, environmental enhancement projects, neighborhood pride building activities and events. We just gave out a grant for a very small tool shed, or not a tool shed, but a supply closet for some tools in the Sills Garden neighborhood to help seniors with leaves in the fall. So that's something that we funded. As I said before, we don't fund employment or wages, and we don't purchase alcohol or perishable goods and products such as food. I've mentioned this before, but want to keep it's one of those key ideas, is that we want to see evidence that you have approval or the full permit for anything that requires a city permit and that you're following departmental policies. We're going to double check those. Now, we are working and we're discussing internally that some of the timing of some of the permits, for instance, special events, and we've worked with special events ourselves to do events. Sometimes you don't get the actual permit until a week before the event. So we can, we're willing to work with you, but you can bet that I'm in contact with the special events office to make sure that they've given their preliminary approval and that you are, that you're in good standing with them. So that's something you want to show evidence of. That's our selection process. Scanning through this. Again, if it's anything involving digging, we want to make sure that you contact Miss Utility and don't hit a gas line, anything like that. Those are things that are important. In addition to the instructions, there's some frequently asked questions. I did catch an error on here earlier that I missed. On the second page, it has, where to go? We have since moved, I didn't catch this earlier. We are now at 835 Glen Rock Road. We're not at 500 East Main Street anymore. So that has changed. I changed it below, but didn't. I want to also give you a background or secret information officially, because this is on the internet and available to anybody on the World Wide Web. I don't have my email in there. It goes to the Neighborhood Engage email. But if you want to send a block-by-block grant straight to me, you can do that, and that's james.herbst@norfolk.gov. But for the purposes of putting this on the website, we've used the Neighborhood Engage at Norfolk email. To send the grants, we prefer them electronically because they're much easier to work with. If you absolutely cannot do that, we can take paper copies and scan them. We've actually, if absolutely necessary, we don't really like doing it because, but we are willing to help work with your neighborhood if you have an organization that is not so computer literate, we've sat in a conference room with our neighborhood development specialist, and they have helped prepare the grant for people that may not be as savvy or comfortable with computers as other people. Okay, so that's, I'm not going to go through this in detail, and it's changed a little. We'll ask you, once we've given you preliminary approval, to register as a vendor. That's accessible on the city website. Jan, you have a question? If you are asking a question, I can't hear you. Maybe if your mic isn't working, you can also put it in the chat. Okay, Jan, can you hear me? All right, well, we'll come back to it if we need to. We'll keep moving. So anyway, in order to process the grant, you'll need to register as a vendor. That's accessible on the city website. We can go over that. Our team can go over that with you at that point. So now we really want to get into the nuts and bolts of an actual application. This was a good application. This really made me happy because it says Bayview Civic League, but there's actually, I think, 5, if not 6 civic leagues that are joining in on this process or on this project. So one of the things, the first thing on the, and this is a matching application. I'm doing the harder one first because it will make the mini grant look a lot easier, and we'll be able to go through it a lot faster. So the first thing is the title and project of your activity. Some of the hints that we would suggest is to keep it simple and understandable. One of the things that we've seen is people make up fancy names for their project that nobody knows what it is. It really helps for it to be simple and understandable. OV holiday tree lighting at Ocean View Park, that is pretty easy to understand. And so that's going to be important. It's not a killer to the application, but it surely makes our life easier. We have to repeat this project title on a few other documents, and so that makes our lives easier. Here's one of the important things. What I said earlier is that the name of your organization has to match on all the documents. So for instance, if it is the neighborhood organization is Bayview Civic League, and that's what your SCC registration says, that's what we need to see on your W-9 and on your SCC registration. If they don't match, it's going to be flagged. So for instance, somebody might put Bayview Civic Organization on the application, and their SCC may say something else. It may be Bayview Civic League. If they don't match, it's going to be flagged. So that's one of those little kind of legal details that you may not think is important, but it is really important to our city attorney office and finance to make sure that the name of the organization that we're contracting with is the same and it's the right organization. Again, Anicia, do you mind commenting on project description? Because we've, some people have written novels in this box. Other people have put one sentence in there that really doesn't tell us anything. Anicia, do you have any hints on this particular box?
Sure. So to Jim's point, you don't have to give us all the minutia of what the project is about, but it should help us to understand what it is that you want to accomplish. And so again, using the application that's in front of you, it gives us it helps us to visualize and see what it is that they want to accomplish with the grant. And so that's what we're looking for, is what is it that you want to do? And what's the benefit of doing this? Is it Is it a broad community event? Who's the target audience for this? So give us some details that help us to understand whatever the title of your grant application is. The project description helps us to understand what that's about. And so there is a character limit because again, we don't want a full page of information, but we want enough detail to help us to understand how this is a benefit to the community.
Thanks, Anicia. And again, I refer back to the project description that it's about relationships, collaboration, skill building. The more you can connect this description to those things, the easier it makes, or the easier it will be on both of us. Something else I didn't think of until I was actually reading their application again today. They note that this is a free event. That's also very important because we can't fund it. I think we had an application a few years ago in ECO for a fundraising event in which people had to pay to be there. That isn't something that we could fund because people had to pay to be there. It wasn't, open to the public. So I didn't think of it until I was rereading this application today, but that's also important that it should be a free event to the public. Okay, the next question. And I don't know why this is not huge. This is not a killer, obviously, because we accepted this application. But this always amuses me that we say select one category and people select multiple categories. And so, again, not going to kill your application, but for our record keeping purposes, we ask for one category. And then which one of the City of Norfolk's priorities does your project address? This again is for our, tracking mechanisms to see where our grants are being used. And you, on this particular question, you can select as many as you want. The next question is project location. Where, if you're doing a physical project, where's it going to be? Is it going to be on private property, city-owned property? That's going to tell us kind of what permissions we need. And so we're asking for description. Again, we're looking for enough detail that gives us, Anicia used a good word that helps us visualize it. We don't need, a legal definition from the deed of where this location is. We've had people say, and for instance, this application says this event will be held at Ocean View Park, located on Norfolk scenic Chesapeake Bay shoreline. That is helpful. We've had people, give very generic descriptions. This will be in our neighborhood, at a median, somewhere on, name a street. That is not very descriptive. That doesn't help us determine what permissions are needed. And so, again, we're looking for specific information so that we can determine what kind of permissions are needed. Anything else on this question, Anicia? All right. Question number 5. Neighborhood benefit involvement. Please describe how your neighborhood residents will benefit from this project. Again, we're not looking for a novel. We're also not looking for a one-sentence description. And generally speaking, the more money that you're asking for, the more specific you should be about why you're asking for that amount of money. And so, we thought this was a good description. Any thoughts, any additional thoughts on this one, Anicia?
No, Jim, I think you covered it.
Okay. Question number 6, how many neighborhood residents are involved in planning the project? Again, this is why we like to ensure this is not just a one-person project. I think, if I remember correctly, we've had people turn applications in where they really haven't talked to anybody yet. That is not a good thing. So we want to know that if this is to engage people, that you've actually engaged other people. So we are asking some of these very specific questions just to ensure how many people were involved in the planning, how many people will be involved in implementation, and what tasks will they completed. So this particular question, this is a general overview. This is kind of a high-level picture. I'll scroll down, And then the next page gets into a more detailed plan. Again, this is when we are giving out the matching grant of $2,500, we want to know that this is well thought out. We want to see a plan. So we thought this was a pretty good plan, a pretty good description, that people had thought this through about how many hours it's going to take, how many people it's going to take. And so we thought this was good. The other reason that we're paying attention to this is, and that these little details are important, is if I scroll down a little more back, is that for the matching part of the grant, we will take volunteer hours as part of the match. And so we use a standard of $22.50 an hour per volunteer. So if you have, for instance, if you have 10 volunteers volunteering 1 hour, that should come to $220.50, right? I get nervous doing math in my head. So that can help you achieve the matching part of your grant without having to have a whole lot of cash. Now, we'll give you a caution. We don't want to see that all of your match is in volunteer hours. I only mention that here just to come up and say that's why this is also important to us, that we want to know that this is thought out and that you're not just making numbers up out of your head. Any thoughts on these two questions, Anicia? Okay, we'll keep moving. And then project sustainability. So we support special projects. We don't support operational support. So we're not going to pay, I don't know too many civic leagues that pay rent. There might be a few that give donations that are using churches or something like that that give. That's not something we're going to pay for, because if we started doing that, then we would be very limited in what we support every year. We would get tied up doing the same things year after year. So what we're looking is that special projects that are sustainable. For instance, and these are projects that you don't have to do them every year, but if you were saying this is going to be an annual project, we want to know that you can survive and that will continue without our support. So we'd like to know, for instance, what a lot of organizations do is say that we are going to rely on donations, or what we've seen with a few applications, for instance, Ingleside, is that we've bought them equipment that they can use year after year. For instance, I already mentioned the popcorn machine. And so those are some examples of how we can help you continue your event without giving you cash every year. Anything else, Anicia?
And I just want to reiterate what you shared, Jim. Sometimes there is no sustainability component because it's a one-time event, and so you can let us know that. But to Jim's point earlier, we have had occasions where, and let me know, Jim, if you were going to speak to this, because I don't want to jump ahead, where there may be an event similar to what Ingleside has done with Inglefest, where they have submitted it, but for different components. So we can't pay for the same thing every year. But let's say you have a really successful event and you want to continue this event. What we can do is consider if there are new components to that event, then we can consider that, but it has to be something that you've not already submitted for before. The other part of the sustainability that Jim referenced is getting equipment that you can use year after year. And so you can spend money renting a machine. You can get a block by block grant to rent a popcorn machine, or for probably the same amount, you can purchase your own. And then not only can you use that for that event, but you can use it for other events as well. One of the civic leagues that we did a grant for some years ago was truly sustainable because they purchased tents and chairs. And what they did, the reason why they purchased tents and chairs is because the civic league wanted to use that to be able to bring in additional revenue. And so instead, if somebody in the community want to have an event, they could go to the civic league and rent the tables and chairs, as opposed to going to one of these party places and be able to get those at a cheaper cost. And then that was a way for the civic league to continue to add money to their account. And so that's a true example of sustainability, because now it's a benefit to it's a long-term benefit to the community, but it is also a way for the civic league to generate revenue.
Thanks, Anicia. So that's question number 7. Then we get into the project budget narrative that asks for, give us estimates of how much things are going to cost and where the money is going to be spent. So we thought this was a good example. They've outlined where they're going to spend the money. And I'll show you in a minute that they've given us real estimates, that they have not just pulled money out of the air. They've actually contacted these organizations, gotten estimates, and provided that documentation. So that is a really valuable way to do this. Did I see a hand up somewhere? It went up and then disappeared. Okay. If you have a question, go ahead and jump in. Otherwise, I'll keep going. So this is, again, similar to the question about time and volunteers. This is kind of a general overview. And then the next page, this gets into the details of the project cost, where we ask you to add them up. In this particular case, they couldn't fit them all on 5 lines. So what I recommended is that they just submit a supplemental document. And so this was their supplemental document in which they just outlined provided the same information. They just didn't try to squeeze it in those 5 lines. So this was their projected budget. As I mentioned, these are pretty accurate numbers because they did obtain estimates on their own. So that gives you the total. What we're looking for here is how much the total project is going to cost in terms of cash, not donations, not volunteer time, but what is it going to cost you in actual funds spent. And so that's not just what you're using the funds for, or that's not just your grant funds, that's what the total cost is. Because what we want to see is we want to see that you also have an income that will pay for the totality of the expenses. So we want to see that, one, you're getting a grant, so we'll give you the $2,500. But then to meet their matching requirement, they're also contributing $700. And again, this is this is really exciting to me. This is 6 different civic leagues that came together to put this project on. And so the money's not just coming from one civic league, it's coming from multiple civic leagues, but they agreed to donate $700. So that brings them up. Their total project income matches their total expenses, which is what we want to see. We want to make sure that we don't give you a check and then the project falls through because you don't have enough money, or you started to spend money and then run out and can't pull the project off. Am I saying that accurately, Anicia? Okay. And then separate from that is the match. So some of these numbers don't get included above, but the volunteer hours, that's what that total comes to. And then they've talked to a number of the businesses up there. They have a very active business association in Ocean View, and they've preliminarily talked about donating $500 in gift cards or food or services from restaurants. And so that meets their match. So when you add all of that stuff up, they have well met their match, their $2,500 match. So that's something that makes us happy. And then below, they give a description of what some of those matched items are and how they plan to use them. They also mention that none of the vendors will be allowed to sell. That keeps them out of trouble with the Commissioner of Revenue, which will require additional permits for selling stuff. Nicia, any other thoughts?
Yes, wanted to share that a match could be a donation of goods. Like, let's just say you're doing a back to school event and Walmart gave you $100 worth of pencils. That could be a part of your match. Another part of your match could be somebody offering their services. And so, in one of the neighborhoods that we work with, they had someone that was a licensed landscape architect, and they donated their time and they donated their labor. So as Jim said earlier, we can't pay for labor, but someone can donate that as an in-kind service. And so It's great if you've got professionals in your neighborhood that are willing to donate their expertise and their abilities. And so we can't accept that as a in-kind donation.
Thanks, Anicia. Now, for that, because I didn't think of that earlier, do we require any evidence that it's, professional, like an invoice saying that they, from the company saying that we donated this, or so that it's not just some Tom, Dick, or Harry saying, hey, hobbyist?
We have not,
Okay,
but we kind of work on the honor system with that because it is an in-kind donation. I would say that if there now, depending on if there was something that requires some structural integrity, then we would look at that. And then
okay,
there's usually going to
that
be some
makes
things
sense.
that we're going to ask for on the front end, but we've not had any applications be submitted where we had to have evidence of who that person was or what they were capable of doing.
Okay, thanks, Anicia. And Terrence, did I see a hand go up?
Yes. Um, excuse me if in advance, so it may be some background noise. I'm at a
Oh, sure.
practice right now, but my question was, what about for the donations in general? Like, do we have to list out who gave us donations or where those donations came from? Because, like, for instance, this just says that from the neighborhood, right? Like, it doesn't really say like who gave us cash or none of that. Like, you know what I mean? Do they have to list out those items?
When you're writing the grant, it's usually you don't know yet. So this is, I don't know if we have any professional grant writers. It's part of the fun of writing grants is that you have to write the grant as if you were getting it without actually knowing that you'll get the money yet. And so that's if you've written grants before. That's part of the fun. And so what we like to see is that they don't actually have the donations yet, but we'd like to see some kind of commitment. In this particular case, we know the area pretty well. We know the business association pretty well. We know that they are pretty committed to this. And so we're pretty confident that they will follow through on these donations. Did I answer your question? And Anicia, is that accurate?
Yes, I was going to add, Terrence, that typically what we've seen in previous applications is that they will say, the local business association, or or they may say local businesses that have donated this. And so there doesn't have to be a finite list like this business did this or this business, donated this particular thing. But they may say businesses or the business association collectively donated the again the candy or the Halloween decorations for this event. And so again, sometimes every application term we have something new that's presented to us, and so we've not had any situations yet where we've had any concerns about what people have placed as far as the donated goods and services. Doesn't mean that we won't, but typically there will just kind of be a list of this business did this, or this resident offered to dedicate their time. But it hasn't been such that it's been cumbersome for the applicants to be able to provide that information.
Okay, that's not okay. Great. Just trying to gain a better understanding on how granular you gotta really get when it comes to submitting this type of paperwork. So appreciate it. Thank you both.
No, I appreciate the questions.
And just one other thing is we try to, because we recognize that a lot of our civic leagues, this is going to be their first time submitting an application. And so unlike, nonprofits and businesses that may have people that are paid to do this for them, often they are doing this themselves. And so we try to keep this application as simple as possible while still making sure that it provides the information that's needed. So that way, when the city, again, because the city attorney's office is going to look through it, is going to look at this through a legal lens, they want to make sure, as Jim shared earlier, that we are doing the appropriate things with city funds. But we do try to keep this as a simplified process so that the everyday person that typically is not submitting applications can still feel comfortable with the process.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Thanks, Anicia. Okay, so that takes us through That page, that takes us through the toughest part of, that page is usually the toughest part of the grant, getting all those numbers right. Once you're through that, you're in good shape. Hopefully you can spell your name. That should be pretty easy. Sign your name, email, the contact person, and then we want to see the Civic League endorsement. Usually it's, one of the board members who's the contact person anyway. But if, for instance, earlier, was it the Eastern Star? We'd want to make sure that the Civic League endorsed it, and that it would still be somebody from the Civic League that is involved. I did take out their personal emails and addresses for the purposes of this evening, but usually this is how this works. We do ask that we ask again that your neighborhood development specialists be involved, because they can catch some of these things early on. In this particular their application, it doesn't include their neighborhood development specialist. In this particular case, it at this point happens to be me as I'm filling in. So didn't really feel the need to sign it myself. So this is the W-9. The instructions are there. So here's a few things that just a few things that we've seen, and this is complicated because it's the IRS, or it can be, I shouldn't say it's complicated. It can be confusing, and not always confusing, but I think it makes people nervous because it's the IRS. So what you need to put here on number 1 is the name of your civic league or neighborhood association. Again, it needs to match the SEC. Do not put your personal name there. One of the things we saw in the recent round is somebody put their personal name and then civic league name on number 2. That's not where that belongs. This is for the organization, and so put the organization name there. This is, generally for you to determine, but normally civic leagues are going to register as non-stock corporations. You can either check that, or you can put it down here and put non-stock organization. The other information, again, we had somebody put their personal social security number in this last round. That's only appropriate if you're doing this on your own. That's not appropriate for a block by block grant. You're going to want to put the organization's employee identification number, EIN number. Most civic leagues should have that to get a bank account if they have an independent bank account. I think you probably can do that online at this point, but I think you should be able to call the IRS and establish an EIN number and then sign it. Again, we want to see it's up to date. This IRS typically or sometimes changes them. The last that we're familiar with is March 2024. So that's what we want to see. Some of the grant organizations that have done this before, they use an old W-9 from a few years ago. The Finance and City Attorney's Office likes to see that that's up to date. Again, we are going to ask for verification that you are up to date with your SEC registration. We ask that you print this out and give it to us. But you can, if you don't, we're going to check it. So it's just easier for you to go ahead and we're going to look that it says active. Oh, go ahead, Anicia.
I just wanted to say, Jim, for the W-9, because I know sometimes, if you can go back up, this sometimes confuses civic leagues. But under the, scroll back up to where it lists what their designation is.
Okay.
In section 3A, you don't have to put anything where it says other. Sometimes there are different things there. We've seen people say civic league. We've seen people say community neighborhood association. And so you don't have to put anything where it says other. They did put a social welfare organization. I think it's just really how civic leagues see themselves. But I don't want you to feel like you have to put something in that space that says other.
Good point. Okay, and so this is public information. I've redacted their personal information anyway, but you can get it online for the SEC website. But we want to see that it says active, active in good standing. That was their status date, but I'm going to scroll down And you can see that this was updated in June. This was for a end of July, early August block by block application. We can see that this was just updated in June. So that's what we want to see. We want to see proof that your organization is up to date with the SEC. And then as part of their application, they attached some documentation, some estimates that they had. That's for the petting zoo, that was for the porta potties and portable hand wash sink. So that's the matching grant. If you think you're not ready for that, the mini grant is much easier. It's much the same things. Anicia, did you have another question, or is that just your hand? Oh, okay, thanks. Same thing about title, same thing about name, same thing about project or project description as before. It's a lot of the same questions, only just briefer. Budget is a lot simpler. We just ask you to put the budget there, what you expect things to cost. And then this is the sustainability question again, and that's it for the mini grant. Same thing, same signatures, same W-9, same SEC verification, all of that stuff. So that takes us through both block by block grants, kind of it's not a detailed overview of every instruction, but I've tried to hit the main things that we see in terms of applications. Benicia, anything to add?
Yes, in case people are wondering, like you may see that we have, you notice that Linda Danziger's name is listed twice. And so the Civic League can apply for both a mini application and a matching, but they cannot be for the same effort. So you can't use the mini application to give you additional funds to support the project that you're doing with the matching grant, but they can be. So you can submit, and that is dependent upon funding, because if we've got a lot of applications that round, we want to make sure that other civic leagues have a chance to submit their applications. But typically, we've been able to support civic leagues submitting 2 applications, but they cannot be for the same thing.
Thanks, Anicia. And I want to point out that this particular application, the matching grant, and this is the power of partnerships and collaborations, is that initially the first application was turned in by the Ocean View Civic League. And so the application at the top, the neighborhood organization, said Ocean View. It was Josh Mayo who signed it. However, when they checked, their SCC registration was not up to date. And so it was getting late. And so because they were partnering with Bayview, and because Bayview had already submitted an application before for another project, they were able to just switch over the application before the deadline. And so they had their information up to date. And so I thought that was the value of collaboration and partnership, working together with other civic leagues. We would love to see more civic leagues work together and go in for multiple grants at the same time. Go ahead, Anicia.
No, you took the words right out of my mouth, Jim. I was just going to say that's something we've been waiting to see happen, is civic leagues collaborate on a project, because the good thing is you can do something like what Bayview did, and they just pulled everything into one grant. But there's also an opportunity that maybe you want to bring in 3 different civic leagues, and you all submit separate applications to support one event. That's a possibility as well. So we're waiting for that day to come where we have multiple civic leagues that partner together to do like something really big that's going to impact a broad area of Norfolk. So that is a possibility as well.
We were close on one occasion. I think there were some Get area civic leagues that were going together to put a mural on an underpass. And I thought we were all excited about it. I don't think Norfolk Southern was so excited about it. So unfortunately, not through any fault of the civic leagues or the city, that didn't go through, but not for lack of trying. That is all I have. We'll open it up to questions. Anicia may have some additional comments, but we'll certainly open it up to questions if anyone has questions.
Is this Jan? I see Jan's hand is raised, Jim.
Jan, did you have a question? You can also put it in the chat if for some reason you're having tech problems. While we're waiting on Jan, Terrence, looks like you have a question.
Yes, sir. So on the W-9, you said that we're supposed to use well, depending on your company, I guess. I have a nonprofit that I'm seeking to get 13C C3 status, and but I haven't filed my my paperwork yet, the 1020, I believe it was, for the tax exemption status. So for now, if I were to go, I mean, of course, this is for civic leads and things like that, but for my company, if I were filling this out, it would be the other non-stock corporation until we file that paperwork and get that letter back. Is that right?
Well, we would prefer, and we really want the Civic League to be submitting the grant, and you could work through them. You would, unless it's been a while since I've started a nonprofit, but in order to get the 501c3 from and to do the 1023 form with the IRS, you generally have to be incorporated with the state in the first place, and so you should already be registered with the state. And so that's as a non-stock corporation, and that's what you would use for your W-9. But our block by block grant should really be through the Civic League. In the email that I sent earlier, I also wanted to promote a program that the city has. It's not through our department, through Human Services. It's called the PIC program, and I do not remember what that stands for at the moment. I put it in the email, but it's something program to improve capacity and capability. Is that right?
Yes. I mean it.
Oh, okay, good. Because I was going by memory. But that is a program to help small nonprofits, new nonprofits get their feet on the ground, and especially get government grants. And so that's a program that the city offers to help. So I wanted to refer people to that who have nonprofits. I know we got a lot of wonderful nonprofits out there doing great work. And so we occasionally get requests to use our block by block grants for those. We're not able to do that, but I can refer you to the PIC program.
And just really quick, thank you for adding that. But for anyone that's interested, it closes on November 7th, so might want to get to work.
Good advertisement. Thank you, Terrence. Oh, thank you, Lauren. It is the program for, I just lost it. It's in the chat. It's the program for improving capacity and capability. It's actually in Lauren's mom's department and aunts. Any other questions? So hopefully I'll be seeing some really good grants coming in, either this round or next round. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to stop recording.